Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Athena Beauty. I am a drag performer and YouTube content creator. Today we're going to be revisiting one of the best animated shows of all time, and that is Avatar: The Last Airbender. This video is for people who know nothing about Avatar and want to experience it for the first time, as well as returnees who have seen the whole thing and are huge fans, like myself. To start out, I feel like we need to know the rules of this new universe we're entering, so I will just let Katara explain that through her intro.
Water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all four elements, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished. 100 years passed and my brother and I discovered the new Avatar, an airbender named Aang. And although his airbending skills are great, he has a lot to learn before he's ready to save anyone. But I believe Aang can save the world.
This is why it's such a perfect TV show, because it literally explained everything you need to know in less than a minute. For this video, we're going to be going through the first season of the show, or book 1, which is about water. We start out with siblings Katara and Sokka, who are members of the Southern Water Tribe. Katara is a smart, kind, wholesome human being, and Sokka is strong, impulsive, and a little daring. They find Aang, the Avatar, who has been lost for 100 years, stuck in a giant iceberg. He's frozen there in time with his flying bison named Appa. Except when they first meet him, Aang doesn't tell them that he's the Avatar, because he has no idea what's going on. So they take him back to the Southern Water Tribe. He meets the kids there, and they have a little fun together. And then he discovers an old Fire Nation ship with Katara, and he realizes that the Fire Nation has been waging war across the entire world for 100 years. And he's done nothing to fight them because he's been immobile for 100 years. Zuko, Prince of the Fire Nation and son of Fire Lord Ozai, who is the evil conqueror of this world, is on a ship with his uncle Iroh. Their job is to track down the Avatar. Before this episode starts, the Avatar has not been seen for 100 years, so it's clear something's up here with his family and why he's out here. Zuko and his Fire Nation troop arrive at the Southern Water Tribe. They see Aang and they capture him. Gran, who is Katara and Sokka's grandmother, send both the siblings after Aang, saying that the tribe can care for itself while they are gone. She knows that they're going to be gone for a while, so she gives them a very heartfelt goodbye. While he has Aang in captivity, Zuko underestimates the Avatar, which allows Aang to escape and basically destroy the ship, or at least submerge it in ice. Katara and Sokka rescue him with Appa, and the gang agrees to accompany Aang on his journey to master all four elements and stop the Fire Lord. First, they're going to travel to the North Pole for waterbending training. Episode 3, Zhao comes to Zuko's ship and teases the prince for being exiled. Zhao is an evil officer in the Fire Nation who will stop at nothing to conquer the world and become famous. He is clearly being set up as the villain of this season. Zhao suspects that Zuko has actually found the Avatar, who has been gone for 100 years, so he's investigating the situation. Meanwhile, Aang and the rest of the gang visit the Southern Air Temple, where they find Momo, a flying lemur monkey who accompanies them on the trip. They're really confused because they reach the temple and it's completely empty. Over the course of the episode, Aang realizes that all the airbenders in the temple and in the world have been wiped out in a massive genocide that the Fire Nation committed. Crazy for this show, a kid show in episode 3 to do a mass genocide. Aang cannot take this tragedy and he goes into his Avatar state, in which he is extremely powerful but also extremely unstable and dangerous. Katara and Sokka comfort him and bring him out of this state, saying that they're his family now, in a really sweet moment. Zhao finds out that Avatar Aang is alive and traveling around the world. Zuko is fed up with Zhao taking over his control and taunting him, so he challenges him to an Agni Kai, or a battle by fire. This is a very tense scene where Zhao and Zuko fight with their firebending abilities, and Zhao almost wins, but then Zuko beats him at the last second, showing how powerful he truly is. While Zhao is on the ground, Zuko could burn Zhao or strike him with a death blow, which is customary at the end of a Agni Kai. However, he refuses and says that his loss was a wound enough. Zhao is not that honorable and tries to strike him from behind, but Ira intervenes and says how much of a coward he truly is. Episode 4. Aang and the gang travel to Kyoshi Island, where they meet the Kyoshi Warriors, a fierce group of women who are devoted to the past Avatar, Avatar Kyoshi. When they arrive at the island, Aang sees a giant water monster who almost attacks and kills them, but they escape just in time. On the island, Sokka trains with Suki, who is one of the Kyoshi warriors. During his training, he lets go of some of his misogyny and learns the ways of the Kyoshi warriors. And Zuko eventually comes and attacks the village, burning down most of the buildings. Sokka joins Suki and fights the Fire Nation off as an honorary Kyoshi warrior. Aang and Katara decide that they might need to flee as a group because it's an okay thing to do when you're not as powerful as your enemy. However, Aang at the last second has a change of heart. He dives into the big lake and rides the water monster from the lake up and douses the entire village with water, stopping all the buildings from burning down. Before he leaves, Sokka gets a kiss from Suki and it's really sweet, and then they depart. Episode 5, they go to Omashu, which is an earthbending city. The city is known for its chute system, which transports mail and packages everywhere, but is also very fun to ride down, as Aang learned 100 years ago from his friend Bumi. Now, Aang and the gang get caught riding the system and taken to the king, who seems a little kooky and weird and is oddly mysterious. He seems to recognize Aang, so he challenges him to a series of 3 tests. If he fails these tests, Katara and Sokka are going to be enveloped in this crystal that will kill them as statues. So Aang succeeds in the first 2 tasks, and then he is challenged to a duel by the king, who is jacked, who is buff and crazy silver daddy, like insane. And he succeeds in that as well. And for a final question, the king asks him what is his name. And Aang, after some thought, replies, "You're Bumi." And it is Bumi, who's a little kooky and mad, and he wants Aang to remember these tests and that sometimes you need to be a mad genius to succeed. Episode 6, they go to a town full of earthbenders, including one named Haru. The village is forbidden from using any of their earthbending powers, or else they will be taken away by troops of the Fire Nation. So Haru is very scared to use his abilities, until there is an old man who is almost stuck in a mine collapse. He uses his powers to get away the rubble and save the man before the cave crushes him. Which is really annoying because the old man immediately rats him out like a little bitch, and it's annoying. Haru's taken to a prison on a Fire Nation ship, and Katara plans to infiltrate the prison and get him out. She enters the prison and tries to convince the earthbenders to escape and break free and take their village back, but they've lost all hope, and the Fire Nation troops know that. So Katara and Sokka come up with a plan to get the coal from the ship depths and bring it up to the training yard, where the earthbenders can use it to fight their attackers. Katara is able to rally them to fighting with the coal. The earthbenders take over the ship and head back to liberate their village, which is scary because I don't think they can stay there for any longer because the Fire Nation will just come back and punish them, but I'm glad that they escaped, I guess. I hope they're okay. Next episode, there is an evil spirit named Heibai who's terrorizing a village and taking one person every night, and they just disappear. The first night that Aang and the gang arrives, Heibai takes Sokka and carries him into the forest. Aang chases after him, reaches out for Sokka's hand, and as they're holding hands, Sokka and the spirit disappear, and Aang becomes a translucent spirit. This is shown in a great transition where the sun rises and Aang's body still appears to look like moonlight or transparent. Aang is visited by Avatar Roku's dragon, who is his animal companion, and he rides him to a faraway temple in the Fire Nation. There's a statue of Avatar Roku in the building because it's a temple dedicated to him. Tomorrow, the sunlight will hit the statue and cause Roku to appear so that he can tell something to Aang. During this moment, Aang receives a vision of a blazing comet in the sky, which will probably come into play in Roku's message. Aang goes back to the village, gets back into his body, and reasons with Heibai. He touches the spirit's forehead and sees that it is a panda spirit who is upset at the Fire Nation's destruction of the forest. Aang gives it an acorn, resembling the hope that the forest will grow back again, and the panda is appeased by this, so it returns Sokka and the other trapped villager. Now that this problem is solved, Aang is going to go to that temple and see Roku, but the problem is that it is in the middle of the Fire Nation. The next episode, they travel to the temple, but they're on a time limit. They only have until the sun sets to commune with Roku. They run through Zhao's forces, who almost attack and destroy them. Zhao sees Zuko trailing the gang. He lets the prince through so they can follow Zuko and find the Avatar. Aang, Katara, and Sokka reach the temple, where its guardians have become Fire Nation supporters because the Avatar has been gone for 100 years. There is one supporter of the Avatar still though, and he takes Aang through a side door to the big door where Avatar Roku's statue is located. To get through though, they need to deliver 5 simultaneous fire blasts to the door, which can only be done by expert firebenders. But Sokka has an idea to use 5 fire bombs to blow up the holes and open the door. This is very clever, but unfortunately it fails. But the Guardians don't know this, so when they see the door, they attempt to open it, which allows Aang to slip through and talk to Roku. Meanwhile, Zhao and Zuko arrive, and Katara and Sokka are tied up to a pole nearby, and Zuko is incapacitated. Aang is inside the building now, which no one can get into. Roku appears and tells him about Sozin's Comet. Sozin's Comet appears every 100 years in the sky, and on this day, the Fire Nation gains immense power. It is at their most powerful. The Fire Nation used it to start their conquest 100 years ago, and they're going to use it now to finally end the war. So Aang needs to stop them before this comet appears, which is next summer. Now we have a real time limit. Aang has to learn all the elements and defeat Ozai before this comet arrives. Things are heating up, literally. To help him escape, Roku appears through Aang's body and uses his powers to destroy the temple. Aang, Katara, and Sokka escape on Appa, and Zhao is furious that he has been defeated again. Aang still needs to learn waterbending. We're halfway through the season and he has not learned any waterbending. Thankfully, Katara is a waterbender, so she can teach him some skills, but they need more advanced learning techniques. They go to a market, and at this market they find a waterbending scroll, which has really good moves for them to learn. The scroll is owned by pirates who likely stole it, so Katara steals it in return. As they practice, Katara grows a little jealous of Aang's talent and how quickly he can take to waterbending. She takes the scroll and tries to practice at night, but she is captured by Zuko and the pirates that she took the scroll from. They're working together to get the scroll back, but Zuko hasn't told them that they're with the Avatar, which Sokka reveals that he is the Avatar and that they can receive a hefty bounty for him. This serves as a distraction and a way for the pirates and Zuko to fight and the gang to escape. They take the pirate ship, but they crash it over a waterfall. Thankfully, they are saved by Appa because Aang found this strange whistle at the market, which happens to be a flying bison whistle. So he summoned Appa at the right time and Appa saved the crew. Next episode, we meet Jet, who is the leader of a gang of freedom fighters and unfortunately one of the crushes I had as a kid in the show. They save the crew from a gang of Fire Nation soldiers, and Katara really likes Jet. She's starting to grow feelings for him and listen to him over her brother. Sokka does not trust Jet. He joins him on a raid where they attack a helpless old man. Katara and Aang don't see this, so when Sokka tells them what happened, they decide to side with Jet and think that Sokka is just jealous. Jet manipulates Katara and Aang into a plan to save the kingdom and the town below from Fire Nation troops. They have to waterbend water out of geysers, but they don't know that it's going to fill up the nearby dam, which Jet will destroy and wipe out the entire village. So he will kill the Fire Nation soldiers there and the innocent villagers. Sokka tries to get Jet to stop. He won't listen. Katara and Aang eventually find out, but by the time they figure it out, it's too late. The dam breaks and destroys the village. This was really dark and it shook me up for a moment. Thankfully, Sokka went to the village and convinced the villagers to leave before the water destroyed their village, so they're all safe. They leave Jet incapacitated, and Jet calls them traitors, and Sokka says, "No, Jet, you become a traitor when you stop protecting innocent people." Really good line. Damn, literally. The next episode is very convoluted, so I won't explain too much of it, but Aang and the gang have to cross a giant canyon called the Great Divide. There they are met by 2 tribes called the Ganjin and the Zhang tribes. Now, there's an old feud between both tribes that causes them to hate each other and not work together ever. So when the Earthbending tour guide comes to take them through the past, they are very reluctant to go together. But regardless, they realize they have to get along and cross the canyon. Aang and the crew will lead them through and facilitate their fighting. The guide warns them not to bring any food down, which unfortunately someone does, and canyon crawlers come and attack the entire group. They break the Earthbender's arms, so now everyone has to work together to get out of the canyon alive. Katara watches one group while Sokka watches the other. During these conversations, they realize that everyone brought food because they didn't trust each other. So they get to the other side of the canyon. Aang realizes that everyone brought food, which also brings in a horde of canyon crawlers. But Aang has a plan to put bags of food over the canyon crawlers' mouths and then lure them up with more food. So the entire group gets canyon crawlers as their steeds and rides up the canyon walls. Meanwhile, the two tribes still hate each other, so Aang makes up a revision to their story that causes them to get along. It's really stupid and I really don't understand it still, so I'm not even gonna try to explain it. So anyways, they forgive each other and go to the nearby village as one. Next episode, there's a giant storm and not much happens in the present, but there is a large retelling of Zuko and Aang's backstories. Zuko one day wanted to sit in on a Fire Nation battle strategies meeting, and he wasn't allowed to talk, but when a general says that they should sacrifice a whole squadron of Fire Nation soldiers, Zuko stands up and objects heavily to this plan. This angers Fire Lord Ozai, who forces him into an Agni Kai. Zuko thinks it's with the general, but unfortunately it's with his father. Zuko doesn't fight back at all, so his father gives him the giant fire scar that we see across his face. This is why Zuko has been exiled and is determined to find the Avatar, because he hopes that it will allow his father to reclaim him as his son and his successor. Aang, meanwhile, was forced into Avatar training at a young age. This ostracized him from his other Airbender friends, and it gave him basically no time to do anything fun. Monkey Yatso, his mentor, allowed him to do fun things and play games. The Airbending elders decided that Aang has to focus all his time on training to stop the massive war coming, so they take away Monkey Yatso's custody of Aang. They're going to transport him to the Northern Air Temple, where he will train for the rest of his life until he faces the Fire Nation Lord. This of course upsets Aang and is the reason why he ran away and was frozen in that giant iceberg. The next episode is titled The Blue Spirit and is quite a good one. Katara and Sokka are super sick from the storm, so Aang has to go get some medicinal supplies for them. Unfortunately, Zhao captures him while he's gone with his elite archers that he just got as his promotion to Admiral. So Aang is trapped in Zhao's fortress and is unable to escape and has no one to help him except a mysterious stranger in a blue mask who the show calls the Blue Spirit comes and rescues Aang. They fight their way out, and as they're fleeing the grounds, Zhao has an archer knock an arrow at the Blue Spirit's head. This makes him lose consciousness for a moment, and Aang sees that underneath the Blue Spirit mask is Zuko. Zuko is helping Aang escape. Aang throws up a dust cloud and takes both of them away. Aang and Zuko sit for a moment in the woods, and when Zuko awakens, Aang asks if they would ever be friends in a past life. Zuko attacks before he can respond, but it looks like the answer might be yes. Next episode, Sokka and Katara are better, and they go to another village where they meet Aunt Wu, who is a fortune teller who can predict a lot of things. They all have their fortunes read, and Katara is destined to marry a powerful bender. Throughout the episode, Aang manages his feelings for Katara and tries not to flirt with her too much, but also wants to learn how to win her affection. There's a giant volcano in the back of this village, and of course this is going to explode in this episode because why else would it be there? But Aunt Wu predicts that it will not explode this year. Aang and Sokka travel to the top of the volcano, and of course it's about to explode. But none of the village believes them because they only believe Aunt Wu. Sokka and Katara change the cloud pattern so that Aunt Wu will see the clouds and realize that there is an intense eruption about to happen. This plan works. The entire village forms a plan to stop the lava, and Aang stops the entire lava flow from reaching the village. During this scene, Sokka says that Aang is one powerful bender, and Katara hears that and wonders if Aang might be her true love. Next episode, they run into Bato, who is a member of the Southern Water Tribe and also a part of Sokka and Katara's father's crew. He reveals that he was injured and was sent to a monastery to heal for the past few weeks. He also says that Sokka and Katara's father is sending him a message that will lead him to their father. So if they stay around, they can go and see their father again. This message arrives, but Aang is the one who gets it, and Aang is jealous that the gang might break off from him, so he keeps the message to himself. The next morning, Bato takes Sokka ice dodging, which is a rite of passage for Water Tribe boys. Their father takes them out when they're 14 years old onto a boat, and they direct all the shots. So Bato says that it is time for Sokka to do this ritual. The gang works together really well and evades all the rocks. They're all given marks of passage, including Aang, who is deemed Aang the Trusted. Aang, of course, gives up at this moment and shows them the map. The entire group is mad and decide to follow Bato to their father. Unfortunately, during all of this, Zuko has been using a tracker to follow Katara's necklace's scent to Aang. And just as they break off, Aang realizes that the hunter is going after Katara. So he goes after her. Bato breaks off from the other two because they decide to go back and see Aang. The hunter comes and immobilizes the two and brings them back to the monastery where Aang is waiting. There's a giant battle. Appa fights the giant monster that paralyzes its victims. Appa's such a good boy, and he's fighting really hard, and I love it for him. To stop the hunter, they have to immobilize the creature with its scent. It sees with its scent, so Aang uses the giant perfumes that the monastery makes to throw off its scent and cause it to go haywire. This causes the creature to run away and saves the gang, who ride away on Appa. Next episode, there's a Fire Nation festival, which Aang wants to go to learn firebending. After they are caught and escape, they find a group of men who are devoted to Zhang the Deserter, who is an old Fire Nation general. He taught General Zhao his firebending abilities, which is why he is the insane general that we see today. Aang wants to learn from Zhang, but Zhang is wary of allowing more people to learn the power of fire, because fire kills and fire harms, and without proper control and intent, it will burn everything. Zhang eventually agrees when Roku appears and convinces him to train Aang, but they have to take things slowly. Aang is of course reluctant to this and burns Katara when he tries to speed up his training. Admiral Zhao comes and attacks the gang because he found them and Zhang, and Aang realizes that this man has an immense temper and that he should use that against him. So Aang taunts Zhao, and in his rage, Zhao burns down his entire fleet of ships. Aang has defeated Zhao yet again, and as the gang leaves, Zhao realizes that Zhang has escaped as well. The next episode, they arrive at the Northern Air Temple, where they see people flying even though there are no more airbenders left. So how is that possible? This is the work of an inventor who has a son named Teo, who in a past accident was crippled and could not use his legs anymore. So the inventor put it upon himself to make contraptions for his son and the people at the Northern Air Temple so that they could fly. Aang sees all this technology overtaking his old culture, and he gets furious and is very hesitant to help these people, but eventually he does warm up to them. Underneath the temple, there's a giant gas leak, which Sokka discovers with the inventor. The inventor has no idea where it's coming from and is nervous about it blowing up the entire place. In a secret room that Aang finds with Teo, they discover weapons and balloons that the inventor is going to give to the Fire Nation. He struck up a deal with them to protect the people there so that he would give them inventions in exchange for their safety. Eventually, a Fire Nation lord comes to collect, and Aang stops the transaction from happening, which causes the Fire Nation to come back and attack the temple. Thankfully, Sokka and the inventor father concoct a plan to stop these troops. They're going to use the war balloon to drop bombs on the troops, which are full of stinky liquid. As they're up in the balloon, Sokka and the father spot the source of the leak and decide to blow up the entire building and get rid of the Fire Nation troops. So in the end, the temple is destroyed, but the people are safe, and they're going to find a new place to keep building their inventions and flying in the air. We're reaching our finale here, and it's gonna get pretty good. Aang, Sokka, and Katara reach the North Pole and the Northern Water Tribe. There, Sokka meets Yue, who is the princess of the tribe. Aang begins tutoring with Master Pakku, but the old man will not teach Katara waterbending because she is a woman. She is supposed to go learn healing with the other women in the Water Tribe. Katara is of course very reluctant to this, but she goes to the women for a day where she meets Yagoda, who tells her about her grand-grand. She used to live here, but she fled for some unknown reason to the Southern Water Tribe. Meanwhile, Admiral Zhao takes Zuko's troops to go fight at the North Pole. He's planning this huge invasion of the Water Tribe so that he can completely take them out. While he's visiting Zuko, he spots the swords that the Blue Spirit used to free Aang, and he knows that Zuko is the Blue Spirit. Zhao recruits the pirates from earlier to blow up Zuko's ship and take him out completely. Thankfully, Zuko survives, and Iroh goes along with Zhao's plan while he's secretly helping Zuko. Back at the Northern Water Tribe, Aang promises to teach Katara at night. However, Pakku immediately finds them and stops training Aang as well. Katara gets annoyed and challenges Pakku to a fight, which she almost wins, which makes Pakku a little impressed. During this scuffle, Katara's necklace falls off, and Pakku picks it up and recognizes it as Grand-Grand's necklace. He proposed to Grand-Grand, but she refused because she didn't want to accept these customs in the arranged marriage that she had been forced into in this tribe. This shows Pakku that maybe some traditions are bad for people and need to be changed, so he agrees to train Katara. At night, Sokka takes Yue out on a date, and he asks her out, but she says she is already engaged. Katara has become Paku's best pupil, while Aang is kind of just relaxing and doing whatever he wants to do. Sokka and Yue take a little ride in Appa out into the sea, but what's that in the air? It's cinders. Zhao has begun his attack on the Northern Water Tribe. Zhao is confident that he will wipe out the tribe and make a name for himself as the greatest general that the Fire Nation has ever seen. Sokka meets Han, who is engaged to Yue, and Han is a real jerk. Sokka does not like him at all. Eventually, he's taken off his mission with Han and assigned to become Princess Yue's protector. Zuko is alive, of course, and he leaves the Fire Nation ships to go find the Avatar. Iroh says a really heartfelt goodbye and reveals to Zuko that he's like a son to him, and Zuko always knew this. Zuko infiltrates the Northern Water Tribe by swimming under the wall, following these sea turtles who are really cute. Aang realizes he needs to get to the spirit world to figure out how to summon the water and moon spirits so that they can help them in this fight. And Yue takes him to the sacred oasis, which is the energy center of the kingdom. Aang looks down into the pond, sees two fish circling each other, and that for some reason propels him into the spirit world. But right at that moment, Zuko arrives, attacks Katara, and takes Aang, which sucks. Sucks. Worst timing. And at the same time, General Zhao cracks the first wall of the Northern Water Tribe and invades the city. Zuko has taken Aang to a shelter in this icy frost cave where they're almost going to freeze to death if they didn't find shelter. Aang is in the spirit world and he goes to see Ko. Now, Ko is called the Face Stealer because he steals the faces of his victims if they show an emotion. If you stare at Ko and you show an expression, he will take your face. Which, this would be no problem if Ko wasn't creepy as fuck. He has this centipede body and he can switch faces at any instant and jump scare the shit out of you. So Aang visits Ko, and Ko is trying to manipulate Aang into getting scared or getting frightened or excited so that he can take his face. He does not care that he's the Avatar, he just wants another face in his collection. Meanwhile, the sun is setting, and Iroh warns Zhao that if the moon appears, the Water Tribe will be at their most powerful, and they will crush the Fire Nation troops. Zhao knows this and reveals that he has a plan to stop it. Apparently, years ago, he studied about the moon and water spirits and realized that they could be killed because they're in mortal form in this world. At this moment, Ko reveals to Aang that the water and moon spirits are the two fish that he saw circling in that pond, so he needs to get the fuck out of there. Aang escapes Ko and arrives back in the mortar world, enters his body. Katara, Sokka, and Yue rescue Aang right as Zhao finds the fish. Yue reveals that as a child she almost died from an illness, so her parents put her in the oasis water and turned her hair silver, which meant that a part of the moon spirit lived inside her. They arrive back at the oasis where Zhao is preparing to kill the fish, and they're all there to stop Zhao, including Iroh. But before they can stop him, Zhang sends a fire arc across the lake, killing the moon spirit. Everything turns dark and the waterbenders lose all their bending abilities. Yue in this moment knows that she has to sacrifice herself because a part of the moon spirit lives inside her from earlier. This is some hero shit. Like, she is such an icon. Rest in peace, Yue. Aang in this moment knows that he has to do something, so he touches the water and becomes this giant water monster. He's in the Avatar state and he's incredibly powerful. He knocks out all the Fire Nation ships and sends them back where they came from and completely ends this battle by himself. As Aang is wiping out these ships, Zuko finds Zhao, who is fleeing. Zhao sees that the moon has returned, and a bit of the Avatar's body grabs Zhao and drags him down into the ocean, where he is never seen again in this series. So the battle is over, the Water Tribe has won, everyone is getting back to normal. Katara is going to teach Aang water bending that she learned from Paku. Zuko is resting for a bit at the behest of Iroh, and our gang of friends is ready for their next challenge, which is going to be earthbending. Oh, and one more thing. The Fire Lord is displeased at Zuko and Zhao's failure, so he's sending someone a little more powerful to get them. Two things I know for sure. Azula is crazy, Azula is mother. I hope you all enjoyed that little recap. It's such a good show. This season is mostly exposition. The next two seasons is where it really gets good, and I can't wait to explore that and revisit that with you guys. So please like, comment, subscribe so that you get notifications from the next videos air. I need more subscribers because I need more money revenue so I can keep making these videos. Anyways, I will see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye.